Dear brothers and sisters, what a privilege it is to be gathered here once again around Jehovah's table of spiritual food. This week's Watchtower Study for the week of July 20 to 26, 2026 addresses a topic that affects many of us, especially our young ones. Make wise decisions regarding additional education. Think about it, my dear brothers and sisters. Every young person faces important questions. What type of work would I like to do when I grow up? Should I get additional education after finishing school? What kind of training would help me to support myself while putting kingdom interests first? These are not easy questions. And the decisions we make about education can have a lasting impact on our spiritual life, our family, and our relationship with Jehovah. This article will discuss Bible principles that can help us think wisely about education. Wise thinking leads to wise decisions. Although this article is primarily addressed to young people, it can help any Christian who is considering additional education. The principles can also help parents guide their children. Let us begin. Question 1 and 2. What decisions do young people face? Answer, brothers and sisters, young people today face many important decisions. One of the most common questions they hear is, what type of work would you like to do when you grow up? The best career that any young person could choose is a career in full-time service. However, they also need to support themselves financially, as 2 Thessalonians 3:10 reminds us. So young ones must think about what secular work they could do in the future. This involves considering whether to get additional education after completing their required schooling, and if so, what type. Question 1 and 2. What is meant by the term additional education? Answer. The term additional education refers to any formal training or education that a person obtains after completing the required schooling where they live. This can include university degrees, vocational training, trade school courses, online programs, or any other type of post-secondary education. The decision to pursue additional education is a personal one that should be made prayerfully and with careful consideration of Bible principles. Question 3. Why might some Christians consider obtaining additional education? Answer. In some places, a person can earn an adequate living without further education. In other places, additional education may help someone find employment that pays better or has better hours. For a Christian, this could allow him to spend more time in the preaching work or in other theocratic activities. However, additional education requires sacrifices and can present a Christian with certain challenges. So it is not a decision to be taken lightly. Question 4. Who should decide if a Christian will obtain additional education? Answer. The Bible says that each person must carry his own load of responsibility. Thus, each adult Christian must make his or her own decision about whether to obtain additional education. Parents are also responsible for decisions regarding their young child's education, and their guidance can prepare their child to make wise decisions about education once he is an adult. As Proverbs 22:6 encourages, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Question 5. When should a person begin thinking about additional education, and why? Answer. Young people often need to make a decision about whether they will pursue additional education before they finish their required schooling. Of course, it is wise for a young person to discuss this topic with his parents well before he has to decide. This will give them time to work together, researching different options. They may be able to choose subjects at school that will prepare him for his future education or employment. Do they have to make a decision before the young person finishes his required schooling? Not necessarily. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent surely lead to success." Some young ones have chosen to finish school, find work, and start pioneering while they determine whether to obtain additional education. Even later in life, a person may consider such a decision. Question 6. What can help someone to make a wise decision regarding additional education? Answer. What can help you to make a wise decision regarding additional education? Be sure to pray about the matter. Furthermore, consider taking the following steps. First, honestly analyze your motives. Second, carefully analyze the education that you are considering. The article then discusses these steps one at a time. Question 7. What care should Christians take when considering additional education? Answer. If you are thinking of obtaining further education, a key question to ask yourself is, why do I want to obtain this form of education? Many people pursue education so that they can get a job that they will enjoy, or one that pays better. Are these motives wrong? Not necessarily. However, the Bible warns us of the dangers of materialism and of seeking security in this system of things. Proverbs 23:4-5 says, "Do not wear yourself out to gain wealth, cease from your own understanding." 1 Timothy 6:8-10 warns that the love of money is a root of all sorts of injurious things. And 1 John 2:17 reminds us that the world is passing away. If your motive is to obtain wealth or prestige, not only might you be left feeling empty, but you could also drift away from Jehovah. Question 8 and 9. How should Christians view education? Answer. How then should you view education? Nothing should be more important to us than serving Jehovah, so view education as a means to help you support yourself while you focus your life on serving Jehovah wholeheartedly. As we read at Matthew 6:33, we should keep on seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. Education should be a tool to help us serve Jehovah more fully, not the goal of our life. Question 8 and 9. What do you learn from the comments made by Josefina, Maureen, and Iris? Answer. These sisters give us excellent examples of how to keep a proper view of additional education. Josefina, from Chile, said, "Secular studies were a means to help me serve Jehovah as fully as possible. My education program had to revolve around my spiritual goals, not the other way around." Maureen chose a one-year course to become a hairstylist. Why? She said, "My goal was to serve where the need was greater, so I looked for a course that would help me to reach that goal. After finishing the course, I used what I had learned to work as a hairstylist and save money for the move." Iris, who completed a longer course in the dental field, said, "Additional education may have some advantages, but it will never give you true success and satisfaction. The formula is simple. If Jehovah is the center of your life, satisfaction and success are guaranteed." From these sisters, we learn that when our friendship with Jehovah is the most important thing in our life, we will make decisions that result in lasting happiness. Education should always be secondary to our spiritual goals. Question 10. How can the principle found at Deuteronomy 32:29 be applied when deciding on additional education? Answer. You may have in mind a specific course or training program. But it is also useful to consider other possibilities, either in the same field or in other fields. Today, there are education options that did not exist in the past, such as online courses. and do not forget to consider whether you could support yourself without further education. For example, Johanna, from Finland, did not get any additional education. She says, "After I finished school, I started working part-time and pioneering. I've had a variety of jobs, and I've seen how Jehovah always keeps his promise to provide what we need. Remember that all decisions regarding additional education, whether to obtain it and what type to obtain, involve advantages and disadvantages. So ask yourself, are the advantages worth the disadvantages?" As Deuteronomy 32:29 says, "If only they would be wise and understand this, they would consider their final end." And 1 Corinthians 10:23 reminds us that not everything is beneficial. Question 11. Why is it important to consider the schedule of the education or training? Answer. The schedule is a crucial factor to consider. Think about how many hours you will spend each week attending classes, receiving training, and doing homework. Will you still have time for your spiritual routine and family obligations? As Philippians 1:10 encourages, we should make sure of the more important things. Could your secular studies leave you feeling too tired mentally for meeting preparation or personal study? This was the case for Jaros from India. He said, "I struggled to focus on spiritual activities. At times, I missed meetings. Looking back, I realized that the course was not worth the time and energy. Then again, some courses are not so time-consuming. Some are part-time, others require little homework. For example, Rebecca from Mozambique is happy with her choice of education. She said, "The course was only 2 hours a day. It allowed me to continue regular pioneering." So carefully evaluate whether the schedule will allow you to maintain your spiritual routine. Question 12. How can a person make the best use of his time with respect to education? Answer. Consider how many months or years it will take to complete the education program. Would acquiring that education be the best use of your time? As Ephesians 5:15-17 counsels, we should make the best use of our time because the days are wicked. If you are young, will the education program allow you to give Jehovah your best during your youth, perhaps in the full-time ministry? As we read at Ecclesiastes 12:1, remember your grand Creator in the days of your youth. Are there shorter education options in the same field? For example, vocational training and trade schools may give you practical skills in less time and at less cost than universities. Mario from Chile said, "I chose a 2-year technical course that was cheaper than a university course. I had classes only 4 days a week, which permitted me to pioneer while taking the course." So look for shorter, more practical options that allow you to prioritize your spiritual goals. Question 13. How could a person be affected by where he lives while obtaining additional education? Answer. The location of the education program is very important. You may find an education program that is close to home. But what if you find a program in another city? Or what if the education program requires you to live on campus? Be aware that moving away from your family poses a serious spiritual danger, especially if you will room with people who do not share your faith. As Proverbs 22:3 says, "The shrewd one sees the danger and conceals himself." And 1 Corinthians 15:33 warns, "Bad associations spoil useful habits." Matthias, from Mozambique, completed an inexpensive 1-year course. Yet, he regrets his decision. Why? He said, I had to spend the entire time at a boarding school. I was tempted daily to do wrong things. I recommend taking a course that will not separate you from your family. A sister from Russia said, I avoided dangers and temptations by living at home with my parents instead of on campus or in a dormitory. You may even be able to find an online course. So always prioritize your spiritual safety over convenience or cost. Question 14. How can the principle found at Luke 14:28 help you when considering additional education? Answer: the financial cost is another critical factor. Some courses are inexpensive or may be funded by the government. In such cases, getting additional education may be an affordable way to gain knowledge and skills that will help you to obtain employment. But in other cases, additional education is expensive. There may also be indirect costs, such as private schooling or tutoring to help you qualify for enrollment. Some courses leave students with many years of debt. Adelson, from Mozambique, regrets his choice in education. He said, "My family sacrificed food and other basic needs to pay for my 4-year course." As you analyze a course or training program, ask yourself, how much will it cost? Can my family or I afford it? Is there a less expensive option? As we read at Luke 14:28, who of you wanting to build a tower does not first sit down and calculate the expense to see if he has enough to complete it? Also ask, if I get into debt, how long will it take to pay it off? Will my future employment pay enough to sustain me and pay off the loan? Proverbs 22:7 warns, the borrower is a slave to the lender. Avoid unnecessary debt. Question 15. Why should you consider the work prospects before deciding on a particular type of education? Answer: you should carefully consider the employment market where you live or where you want to live. Will the education actually help you to find a job? Some courses provide little practical training. Instead, they are mostly theoretical, or they focus on intellectual, academic, or philosophical subjects. As Colossians 2:8 warns, we must avoid being taken captive by empty philosophy. A sister from India said, "My course did not help me to develop the practical skills that employers require. As a result, I was not able to find work in the field I had studied." Other education may be in a field with few job opportunities. Sublime, from the Central African Republic, completed a course on repairing air conditioners. However, he said, "Where I live, most people repair things themselves, so it can be difficult to find work. So research the job market carefully before investing time and money in a course." Question 16. Why is it worthwhile to consider the type of work that the education may lead to? Answer: contemplate also the type of work you are likely to find. Will you enjoy it? As Ecclesiastes 3:12 and 13 says, there is nothing better than to rejoice in our work. What will the work environment be like? Is it an industry known for being unsafe, competitive, or stressful? How much money does that type of work typically pay? Will it be enough to support yourself? Will you need ongoing education to keep the job? Most important, will it allow you to put kingdom interests first? As Ecclesiastes 12:13 reminds us, our obligation is to fear God and keep His commandments. Of course, when work is scarce, we cannot afford to be too choosy. But the choice you make regarding education can affect your employment opportunities in the future. Tabitha, from India, chose a 6-month sewing course. She said, "I reasoned that working as a tailor would help me to pioneer. It is a job that would always be in demand. Give me a flexible schedule. and not require a large investment. The course helped Tabitha find work to support her pioneering, so look for work that allows you to serve Jehovah fully. Question 17. How can a Christian find the information he needs to make a wise decision regarding education? Answer. We have discussed various factors to consider about additional education. How can you find the information you need to make a wise decision? Research potential courses by visiting the institution or its website. Check job listings to learn how many jobs are available in that field. You could also consult with those who have completed similar training or who work in that field. Ask them, what are the pros and cons of that education or employment? Talk to others who are happily serving Jehovah. What education and employment do they suggest? They may even mention a field of employment that you have not considered. Question 17. What Bible principles shed light on this decision? Answer. The box Bible Principles to Consider provides several important principles. What are my motives for pursuing additional education? How much time will I spend on schooling and homework each week? How many years will the education take to complete? Where will I live? How much will the education cost? Will the education help me to find work that can support me and help me to pursue my spiritual goals? These principles help us to evaluate our decisions from Jehovah's viewpoint. Question 18. What should we remember? Answer. As we have seen, additional education has advantages and disadvantages. So prayerfully consider your options. Remember, further education may provide a measure of material stability, but the only way to be truly happy is to have a close friendship with Jehovah. As Psalm 16:9-11 says, "My heart is joyful, and my glory is rejoicing. You will make known to me the path of life. There is abundant joy in your presence." Jehovah will always care for his people, regardless of their secular education. As Hebrews 13:5 assures us, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." Now, what if you have decided to get additional education? What can help you to remain close to Jehovah during your studies? That will be discussed in the next article. We continue now with the 3 review questions. Question 1. How does Galatians 6:5 apply to decisions regarding additional education? Answer. Brothers and sisters, Galatians 6:5 says that each one will carry his own load. This means that each adult Christian must take personal responsibility for decisions regarding additional education. While parents guide their children, and while we can certainly seek counsel from mature brothers and sisters, ultimately, the decision about whether to pursue further education and what type to pursue is a personal one. No one can make this decision for you. You must weigh the advantages and disadvantages prayerfully, analyze your motives honestly, and consider how your choice will affect your relationship with Jehovah and your ability to serve him fully. This principle also reminds us that we cannot blame others if our education choice leads to negative consequences. We must carry our own load and accept responsibility for our decisions. At the same time, young ones who are still under their parents' authority should respect their parents' guidance in this matter, as the Bible instructs children to obey their parents. So Galatians 6:5 teaches us that while we can seek advice, the final decision and its consequences rest with us individually. Next question. Question 2. How should Christians view further education? Answer. Christians should view further education as a tool to help them support themselves while they focus their life on serving Jehovah wholeheartedly. Nothing should be more important to us than serving Jehovah. As we read at Matthew 6:33, we should keep on seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. So education should not be the goal of our life, rather it should be a means to an end, a way to obtain employment that allows us to put kingdom interests first. We must be careful not to pursue education out of wrong motives, such as a desire for wealth, prestige, or security in this system of things. Instead, we should view education as Josefina, Maureen, and Iris did, as a way to serve Jehovah more fully, to support ourselves while pioneering, or to move to where the need is greater. A proper view of education will keep us from being consumed by secular pursuits and will help us to maintain a balanced, spiritually focused life. Final question. Question 3. What factors should a Christian consider when deciding whether to obtain additional education? Answer, brothers and sisters. When deciding about additional education, a Christian should prayerfully consider several key factors. First, analyze your motives. Are you seeking education to serve Jehovah more fully or to gain wealth and prestige? Second, evaluate the schedule. Will you still have time for your spiritual routine and family obligations? Third, consider the length. Will the education make the best use of your time, especially during your youth? Fourth, think about the location. Will you need to move away from home and face spiritual dangers? Fifth, calculate the financial cost. Can you afford it without going into unnecessary debt? Sixth, research the work prospects. Will this education actually help you find practical employment? And finally, consider the type of work. Will it allow you to put kingdom interests first and support your spiritual goals? By carefully weighing all these factors and praying for Jehovah's guidance, you can make a wise decision that honors Jehovah and supports your service to him.